been attacked. They call themselves the Gorn.
If the Gorn learn to harness the Helios device, its power, they will be all but unstoppable.
Jason, of all the video game licensed properties that I've played, this one had the most potential.
How dare you? How dare you? I was watching that scene today on YouTube. At a coffee shop getting all choked up. And there you go invoking it with this turd.
It is generally recognized as the only time that a man could cry in America, and it's totally cool, bro. Just when Spock dies. Like,
yes.
No problem. Anyway, welcome everybody to the loading bar. We're talking about that new Star Trek game, and oy vey. I'm actually completely serious when I say this game has a lot of potential because, like, in the hands of somebody else, I don't know what the fuck went wrong here, Jason, because, like, if you just wrote everything about this game down on paper, it would be like the best movie license game that I've ever played. Uncharted, third person, got some platforming, got some Gears of War style shooting, scanning, upgrades, stealth sections. You get to drive the ship at one point. Like Kirk and Spock banter. They brought in all the actors to do the voices, but woo! I mean, like, what part of this sounds bad? And then you play it, you're just like, oh man, shit.
You're like, oh, most of the parts are bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, yeah, because that's exactly what we wanted to see in a Star Trek game was Gears of War style action against the dinosaur people from the Super Mario Brothers movie.
I was going to make a Turok dinosaur hunter joke, but he kind of beat me to it with that. Yeah, the story for this game goes as follows. Kirk and Spock are tooling around in the Enterprise, and...
yeah, they're out cruising for chicks.
That's right.
That's what you make it sound like.
It's Friday night. They get the Enterprise out there doing their thing, and suddenly...
Bro, would you like to go get an icy? I would, Spock. Let's do that.
It's entirely logical, Captain. And then the Vulcans, once again, I don't know what it is about this new Star Trek where they've got to be on the Vulcans all the time. Suddenly, this giant space butthole opens up over New Vulcan, and the fucking dinosaur Gorn start pouring out and being jackasses. And in come Kirk and Spock to stop such jackassery in what is a pretty mediocre... I mean, the plot is nothing... It's nothing great. It's serviceable in getting you from one place to another.
Yeah. It's basically, here's this magical, ill-defined device that everybody wants. It's a brilliant technology. It was a MacGuffin.
Yeah, it was literally Deus Ex Machina. It was the thing in the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, for fuck's sake. Like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but the bad guys have it, and with it they will rule the universe. It's like... okay. I mean, they already rule their universe, so I don't know why they need more than that. Anyway, but I don't know. I mean, like, from a base concept perspective, like, it doesn't seem like a bad idea, right? Like, Kirk and Spock, buddy cop action game type of thing.
It doesn't seem like a bad idea unless you want a Star Trek game.
Well, but Jason, how many of the Star Trek games have you played?
God, yeah. I think the best one was the one I played on my, like, old Texas Instruments computer back in the early 80s, like Star Trek SOS, where you're like flying around shooting at V'ger.
Oh, yep. Do you remember the one on the NES and how it was trying to give you a magical adventure and you were just like, oh God, this is fucking awful.
It was stinky.
I mean, there were so many of them. I mean, I guess like there was Bridge Commander that was like, yeah, just sit back at your computer and say, turn the ship to the left, number one, and pretend like you're Captain Picard, except that it was kind of boring, and then there was...
yeah.
I mean, the ones that I remember when I think back to good Star Trek games are Elite Force, but that wasn't really... That was just Quake with Star Trek slapped on top of it.
And Jedi Outcast.
Yeah, well, obviously, both Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy were really good Star Trek games. You fucking heathen. No. What was the other one? Starfleet Command, I guess, where you get to tool your ship around. There was some RTSs. It seems like this is one of those franchises that for years has been trying to get a good game.
FTL.
What's that?
FTL was a good one.
Yeah? If only
That was a good Star Trek game.
I mean, I guess you could name your guys Kirk and Spock and stuff, and maybe get we've seen mods online to make your ship into the Enterprise. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, from a concept, this doesn't seem like the worst thing because it's not just, it's not like they have chainsaws in the front of their phaser rifles and they're all fucking broed out Marcus Phoenix style. I mean, there's scanning and science mumbo jumbo and shiny lens flares and shit. I mean, I really wanted to like this game, Jason.
I know you did. You're the guy who I show up to record a happy hour and you answer the door in your Kirk robe. True story.
Well, what can I say? I was running late that day. Unfortunately, for all the nice things that I would like to say about this game and how hard it's trying, it sucks.
It does. Thank you. God, you kept trying to apologize for it the other day. Like, well, it's not all bad. And then once we got to the end of the conversation and you were like, yeah, it's bad.
I mean, like I said, I so want it. This is the game that makes me understand how people felt about Aliens Colonial Marines. Because I never, for the life of me, thought that Aliens Colonial Marines was going to be any good. I mean, I saw it at E3. I was like, I don't know if they could pull this off. Whatever. But this game, I was like, I saw one trailer 2 years ago and went, ooh, that looks pretty cool. I can't wait for that to come out. And there was a part of my brain that when I was putting the disc into my PlayStation was just like, you know this is going to be shit. Why are you doing this to yourself?
It's released too closely to the release of the movie. So you know that there's some time constraints put on it.
Yeah.
That ended up just pissing all over the movie. I have a friend, Chepo, who is a rabid Star Trek fan. And he was actually going to buy a PS3. Not a gamer. He was going to buy a PS3 so he could play this Star Trek game. I had to text him and say, please don't do this.
No, bro.
Come over if you need to talk.
Yeah.
Your life is worth more than this.
I will let you borrow my PlayStation if you need to play this game that bad. It's only going to take you about 3 hours before you bring my PlayStation back and say, well, thanks for not letting me do that. You're a true friend, Jason.
Yeah.
Murphy.
I got to say that, though, if you facilitate and enable someone to play this game, you're not going to be friends for very long. They're like, oh, Jason's an asshole. It's like he just punked me by sending this thing into my home.
Well, have you been out there like, hey, guy, man, you really need to play that new Star Trek game. I'm not kidding. It is so fuck BioShock Infinite. That new Star Trek game is where it's at.
I only do that to people who don't use their turn signal and people who talk in the movie theater. I just hand them a free copy, and they're like, hey, free video game.
Woo! Oh, damn it. Well, okay.
So let's talk about the good things. Let's get that out of the way.
All right. Well, why don't you talk about the things that you liked, and then I can add on the things that I liked since I'm an apologist for Star Trek.
Okay. Some of the animations underneath all that crappy video or of all crappy graphics, some of the animations were good. They had like little nuances in the characters, just little movements and everything while they were talking. It actually looked like they were talking, like little clench of a fist, a wave of a hand, a tilt of the head, stuff like that. Just something, a couple of subtle touches that I noticed.
This is like when you go to the play, you compliment your friend on the lighting, right?
Right.
Man, that stage design was, top notch.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, how was your meal, sir? The salt I put on it was quite tasty. Thank you. And the story wasn't bad. The voice acting was good all around.
Sometimes I didn't like the weirdest thing is that I thought for a while as I was playing the game that I was pretty sure that it was Chris Pine and Zachary, what's his name, Quinto, how do you say it? They're going to tell me in the comments anyway. It doesn't matter. Were definitely Kirk and Spock, but then I couldn't hear any Carl Urban whenever Bones opened his mouth. I was like, is that fucking Carl? I mean, it wasn't until I got to the end credit sequence where I was like, oh yeah, that was him. That was every single one of them. And, for characters like Uhura, who have like 3 lines of dialogue, you maybe could have gotten a sound alike, is all I'm saying. I mean, I don't know if you need to check off the guy, Anton Yelchin or whatever his name is, to come in for 20 minutes to do the voice recording for this.
He comes in and they're like, all right, that's good. He was just sitting down. It's like, oh, we're done.
Yeah. I mean, don't they have something these days that you could like auto to that you could just turn on to make that weird Russian accent just go over anybody's voice and then just have, like a 14-year-old come in and read his lines and like, boom, done.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, just say this. Can you read? Okay, good.
Say nuclear vessels again.
Right. But yeah, the voice acting was good. There was a kernel of a good idea with the tricorders and all of the use of the tricorders.
Yep.
It was, I don't know, it didn't hook me, but there was some good stuff there.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, like you use the tricorder in this game, it's kind of the only thing that would separate this from just a really rudimentary third-person shooter, because you use the tricorder it'll let you see through walls, you can see enemies, you can do things like distract people in the stealth sequences, you can turn off their guns, remote detonate their grenades, you can juice up your partner, you can also scan things in the environment, which is how you get XP to be able to level up, to unlock these kind of special powers for your phaser, your tricorder, or whatever, and which adds, another layer of nuance to the game. The only problem that I had was that it started to become a little bit like Arkham Asylum, where I just had the tricorder on all the time, and then whenever there was a gourd, I would just turn it off, shoot them, and then turn it back on again.
Yeah, I was only using the tricorder when absolutely necessary. Like, there are lots of things you have to unlock, and unlocking things requires mini games. Lots of painful, tedious mini games.
Yes.
I'm getting out of the things that I like now. I'm moving away from that. These painful, tedious mini games. Every time I came up to something, I'm like, okay. And so it's built to be a co-op game. I didn't really play it much co-op. I just did it single player, where Spock is run by AI. Mm-hmm. And I played as Kirk, and every time I came to one of these little mini games, those little hacking games, I was just like, Spock, open this. Because you can choose, you can say, you do this while I defend you or whatever. I'm like, open this, and when you're done, go open this thing, and then when you're done with that, go over here and do this one. Anytime I could, I would make him do it. But every now and then he's like, Captain, I think that our efforts would be best combined. I'm like, oh, God damn it, fine. Where you would have to team up and do it at the same time and coordinate your efforts. And it was just, oh, God, they put all of these pain-in-the-ass, repetitive mini-games in there that you would, of course, have to do during combat sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was just so annoying.
There's only like 2 or 3 of them in there.
Yeah.
And it suffers a lot from like that, what I think of as like Bioshock syndrome, where it's like, this little mini game, hey, it's a fun little mini game. And then you do it a dozen times, and you're like, yeah, fuck this. And then by the end of the game, you've done it like 100 times, and you're like, I'm going to fucking kill somebody if I have to match up these goddamn signals one more fucking time. Because it's just the exact same thing. Or play their little Tron Light Cycle game. I bet you didn't even do that. Did you even get to the one that had a little Tron Light Cycle game?
No.
Yeah, that was a pain in the ass, and they give you like 2 or 3, and you've got to run these little light cycle things, and you can't hit the track. It's terrible. I mean, but like everything else in this game, if they had varied it up a little bit, if they had had a few different types of puzzles, or they had been a little bit more like better executed, it could have kind of added to it. I mean, plenty of games do this where they throw in a hacking mini game. Of course, like we've talked about this before, though. Video game industry, we're getting to the end of the hacking mini game. You guys need to start phasing that shit out.
Yeah, and I love it. Speaking of variation, when you're playing co-op, just with the computer. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess when you're playing single player, and Spock is running around with you, and he's telling you to go do something. Mm-hmm. Like, we should unlock this door, Captain. We should unlock this door.
Like, God damn it! I'm looking for logs over here. Fucking shut up, Spock.
And he's telling you the same thing over and over. And that is one of my other problems, the AI. Like, the cooperative AI. Okay, so everyone knows Spock. He's logical. Mm-hmm. He is compassionate.
Yep.
He's intelligent. Now, imagine the Spock that you know. Now imagine him with an IQ of about 40. That's what you're playing with. I would look over and I'm like, why are you just running into the door jam? Just running in place in the door jam and saying the same damn thing over and over. It's like, do you need a helmet, Spock? You should be wearing a helmet and sitting down and watching fucking The Electric Company.
There were a few sequences in the game where you had to fight kind of like these little mini bosses where you get like an enemy that would come out that'd be a little bit more powerful than normal, where you kind of have to team up and work together. And I swear to God, every time I got to those enemies, I would just be like, "Ah!" and like just run up to that dude and get killed in a second. It was like,
Yes, and then he starts crawling for help.
Yep, Captain, I need help. And it's like, well, fuck you, dude. He's standing right next to you, and he won't get away from you, so just die already. Yeah, I tell you what, let's talk about two of the things in this game that are probably the biggest cardinal sins. One, my God, is this game ugly.
Ugly.
So ugly. So ugly. Between all the Gorn stuff, which is brown with spikes. Like,
yeah.
That's it. Just brown with spikes. And then you get into, like, just the actual character models of, I mean, like, say what you will about all the problems that this game has. There's repetitive minigames, a buggy AI, whatever. Like, you know, a lot of this I could maybe start to forgive if you could just make Kirk and Spock look like Kirk and Spock, and not the off-brand Mexican action figures of Kirk and Spock that you get at the supermarket.
Right. Or like the Mexican action figures at the supermarket that also had fetal alcohol syndrome.
So, you know, and they have all the rest of the characters, and they bear a passing resemblance, but because, you know, there was some
like, dude, did you see Scotty?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, Jesus Christ, the ship's engineer is Gollum.
So that, I mean, like, definitely, it never quit surprising me how ugly this game was, because it was just like there was enough money thrown at it, because it was like they had fairly decent design and ideas, but the execution was just so like. And the other thing is that, you know, when you play a game like Gears or Uncharted or, you know, big AAA titles, you get a sense of like really polished game mechanics where like going into cover feels real natural and aiming and shooting is very satisfying. And this whole game just felt like clunky and clumsy. Like it was constantly tripping over itself to the point where nothing felt good to do. Sneaking didn't feel good to do. Scanning didn't feel good. I mean, like, none of these, which I guess I'm kind of getting out of this weird metaphor, but like, you understand what I'm saying, right, Jason? Like, none of it felt snappy or like.
No. Yeah, and
it all felt
it was always the simple things that tripped me up.
Yeah.
Like trying to get into the right position so that I could replenish my ammo.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
You know, it's like, why is it not right? Oh shit, it's gone now. Okay, right there. Damn it!
Or like, you know, or like things like where as Kirk you have an alternate fire on your phaser that'll stun an enemy, and you stun them, but then you actually have to run up and punch them in the face after you hit them with the stun
before the stun runs out.
And it seemed like however they programmed this game, like. In a lot of games, they'll do tweaking to make sure that the stun lasts long enough for you to feasibly run up there so that it's satisfying to use. Whereas here, it seemed like it was a 50-50 whether I was going to get there in time to punch the lizard dude in the face, or he was just going to turn around and unload his shotgun into my chest.
Or if you get there in time, if you're lined up correctly, you know, I would be facing the guy. I'm like, okay, let me hit him, because you got to wait for the prompt before you hit him.
Yeah, I know. I know. But see, then you get stuff like you could, like, you know, you have a choice between stunning dudes or killing dudes. And sometimes you could stun a dude, and then Spock can mind meld and get the code you need to open up a shortcut to get to a different point in the level. Like, there's some interesting and good ideas in here, but the execution is.
Yeah. So the Gorn have this poison thing that causes Federation, Starfleet members to get zombied, basically. Yeah, where they just attack you mindlessly, and their dialogue is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
When they're begging for help, but you have the two different. You've got stun and kill on your phaser, and I was, just if you stun them, they'll recover in a second.
You didn't use the R2 button at all, did you?
I did like once or twice, and then Spock's like, "Captain, I must encourage you to use stun and do not harm these compromised Starfleet members." I was just like, "Fuck you!" He's coming right at me, everybody dies. Everybody dies.
It's another part of the game that bears mentioning is that there was sections of the game where they would put an optional restriction on you, saying like, "Hey, get through this area without killing any of the compromised Starfleet members." So you could shoot the enemy, shoot the Gorn, but you are supposed to stun these guys so that you can bring back to life later, and that's a good idea. But, like a lot of times the objective was sneak through this area without getting seen by anybody. But because the goddamn stealth and stun mechanics are so stiff and unyielding, it becomes this. I mean, there was one time where I just kept reloading my game until I managed to get through. And then what you get when you go through all sneaky and whatever is an extremely paltry amount of XP. And then I was like, well, I just fucking, all right, this time I'm just going to take the bazooka out and start, space bazookaing people.
Yeah, it gives me that. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. That is not happening. Where are the bad guys? Okay, I'm going to shoot them and move on. Or I'm just going to run past them to the next area.
Yeah. Let's see. The game does have online co-op that you could do, except for the thing. I tried it. Did you try it, Jason? Did you forget it?
I did not.
Okay. I tried it, and what basically happens is you join into somebody's game, and then you have to wait for them to get to the next checkpoint in the game before it puts you in. So you end up sitting looking at a black screen that says, like, waiting for the player to get to the next checkpoint. Please do not disconnect. And I sat for like 25 minutes. I don't know if the dude I was connected to was doing like a stealth sequence or something, but I tried to get into like 5 different games, spent about 2 hours waiting for people to let me in. I never managed to get in once. I don't know if it works or if it's just that nobody is playing it or everybody that I like. Is there some campaign online where everybody just starts their game up online and then goes AFK and eats dinner and shit just to troll other people?
Were you putting your Xbox remote up to your mouth? Hello, computer.
I wish.
Yeah, and then there's the enemy AI. Which I loved it because some of the Gorn would like poke their heads out and then they would just stay there. Mm-hmm. They're just like, hello. And I kept imagining going, hello, just sticking their heads out. It's like, are they going to throw up jazz hands? It's like, what are you doing? I can see you and you're not moving. Okay, I'm just going to kill you. Fine. It was so ridiculous.
You know what? You know what the most cardinal sin for this entire game is, Jason? You got a Star Trek game starring Kirk and Spock with the Gorn, and not once does motherfucking Kirk have a fist fight with the Gorn on the side of a rock. Like, yeah. I would have given this game a whole nother point in rating if there had just been one time where they were like, you remember that, huh?
Yeah, never happened. It was moronic. And it's a Star Trek game, and you don't really get to fly the Enterprise, really.
Yeah, you get that one rail shooting sequence that we did in the happy hour, but that's it.
Yeah.
A couple of flying through space bits that are pretty cool, but yeah. Yeah.
It was, oh man, just missed opportunities. I was actually looking forward to this. I thought it was going to be a decent game. I was like, oh, okay, it's not based on the movie. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's not going to be held to the restrictions of the movie that's being released around the same time. Wrong. No.
Well, I'm depressed now. Why don't we give this a rating?
Okay. It had a few kernels of good ideas. It had some good voice acting, like I was saying. And, it does have some cool Star Trek elements. So if you're a big Star Trek fan, this is going to be one of the only places you're going to get it for a while in the video game world. So I'm going to give it a rental.
I am going to be right there with you and say yes, rental. I feel like there's a lot in this game to like, and as I said before, I said this to you about 50 times yesterday, that like if there was just a different company with more money had this license, had even this exact voice acting, script, game idea, design, all this stuff, and just executed it in a way that was much better than this. It was not as kind of slapdash and haphazard as this. This could have been a really surprisingly good game, but as it is, it's a good idea that is just incredibly poorly executed. So yes, a rental. If you're a huge Star Trek fan, I don't know. Yes, maybe check it out. Maybe. No. Just watch our video. That should be enough. That should be all you need.
Yeah. Oh, hey, good. I got a good pun.
What's that?
For this one? You
All right.
ready?
All right,
It's gonna
lay it
be
on me.
painful.
Okay.
Star Trek: The Game has number 2 to beam down. Yeah, I hate myself.
You want control? I'll give you control.
She can't take any more of this, Captain.
We created a device called the Helios machine to help rebuild New Vulcan.